They told me there were no seats left. That's how the war started. "Sorry, honey, we forgot to book your ticket," Lena said on speakerphone, her voice sugary and distant. I could hear clinking glasses and someone laughing behind her, maybe her sister. "Everything's booked now. You know how Hawaii gets during wedding season." I stared at the confirmation email on my laptop, the one showing I'd paid for 4 first-class tickets to Honolulu. Hers, her sister's, her parents', and mine. The credit card statement didn't lie. The universe doesn't forget. People do. "It happens," I said, trying to sound calm. "It does," she said too quickly, like she wanted to hang up before I started asking questions. That was the moment I knew I wasn't invited. I watched the cursor blink on my screen, feeling like it was laughing at me, so I disappeared. Quietly. For a year. While you're here, hit the hype button, don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? When I came back, the town looked the same. A slice of weathered New England pretending to be glamorous for tourists. Salt Harbor smelled of brine and cheap perfume. Boats bobbed in the marina, the same gossip still floated through the bars, and the same people still waved like they cared. Everyone thought I'd been on an extended inspection contract downstate. In a way, I had. I'd been inspecting people. How they lie, how they forget, how they move money they shouldn't. I'd lost 10 pounds, grown a short beard, and learned patience. It's a strange skill, patience. Feels soft until you use it like a knife. The first person I saw when I walked into the Harborfield Hotel lobby was Marla, the events manager. She was tapping away at her tablet, half paying attention to a floral vendor. She looked up, eyes widening. "Nate, you're back." "Just visiting," I said. "Still breathing. Shocking, huh?" She laughed nervously. The same laugh people give when they remember what they did and hope you don't. Over the next week, I filed a citizen safety complaint about the Harborfield Hotel's ballroom exits and sprinklers, all perfectly legal. When the inspector's office gets a complaint, any complaint, they have to check it. That's city code. It didn't matter that I used my middle name in a P.O. box. Then I mailed a copy of Ryan's lapsed fire inspection notice to his partner, Jace, unsigned. Partnerships crack easier than eggs when money's on the line. By Friday, the gym's doors were locked for maintenance. Jace had frozen the business account until Ryan explained the missing funds. Lena was furious. Her wellness collaboration promo had to be postponed. Cass's podcast teased, "Influencers who cut corners, stay tuned." I was patient, always patient. Ryan texted me late that night. Unknown number, but I knew it was him. "Meet me at the marina. We talk. No cops." I showed up, hands in pockets, wind cutting off the bay. The planks were slick with sea mist. "You think this is funny?" he barked, pacing. "You're ruining lives." "Not yet," I said. He lunged. I sidestepped, unclipped the safety chain I'd loosened earlier. He tripped, crashed into the dock rail, and grabbed at me to steady himself. I caught him by the collar, leaned close. "This is me forgetting to hold you up," I said, and let go. He landed in the shallow water, soaked, swearing. People on the boardwalk stared, phones out. Public humiliation. Nothing illegal. Salt water smells better when it's revenge. That was strike 2. A week later, Cass called. Her voice was electric. "You won't believe this. I got a DM from one of Lena's sister's bridesmaids. Turns out your Hawaii ticket wasn't a mistake." "Color me shocked," I said flatly. "They excluded you on purpose. Sponsor didn't want controversy spouses in the promo shoot. The sister said Lena agreed. Even Marla knew." I sat back, staring at the ceiling. The light hummed like it was mocking me. So it wasn't forgetfulness, it was business. They'd sold my absence like it was a product feature. Fine. Then I'd sell their downfall the same way, publicly. Saturday afternoon, the Harborfield's lawn was full of vendors setting up for the gala that may not happen. Lena was a picture of composed ruin. makeup fixed, jaw clenched, the professional smile like armor. She called Ryan. He suggested the gym. He said, "We can move it. We have space. We'll save the day." Of course he did. He thought brawn and a rented tent could replace sprinkler heads and exit signs. I knew the gym's capacity limits. I knew the city required permits for temporary assembly exceeding certain numbers, and the gym's owner's insurance lapsed the previous quarter during paperwork delays. I also knew that if a public official walked into that room with a clipboard in his hand, the whole show would fold like a cheap chair. So I waited under the overhang of the gym's bay door, a pack of cigarettes in my jacket, though I didn't plan to smoke. I had the inspector's work order printed and folded in my back pocket, like a ticket to the opera. Guests started arriving at the gym: caterers, florists, a few bloggers who smelled a story and a chance at content. Jace tried to manage the money panic. Ryan was arranging a last-minute stage against a wall I knew to be wedged with an unpermitted mezzanine. The contractor hired it as a favor. Favors make bad architecture. I watched Lena glide through the crowd, serving a smile to every camera phone. She kept glancing at the door as if expecting me to step through and clap. I didn't clap. I let the town do the clapping for me. I slipped through the crowd, light steps, one hand warm on the plastic cover of the nearest fire alarm. It's a small thing, the cover. You lift it, and the sensor reads a test. The alarm company calls the municipality. The municipality calls an inspector. The inspector shows up with authority and a stamped clipboard. I wanted authority in the room more than I wanted a single moment. "Is someone testing the alarm?" a voice called from the doorway. I lifted the cover, slow, like squeezing a lemon. The panel beeped. 10 seconds later, a voice on the intercom. "Fire panel reporting manual pull." The crowd shifted. Phones were held higher. Lena's smile flickered. Ryan started toward me, eyes flaring. He reached for the alarm box. I stepped between him and the box. "Don't touch it," I said. "Just stand back." He shoved me. He was big and solid in a way that made you feel sorry for soft things. He pushed harder. I pushed back. There were gasps, soft and rising. Then the inspector arrived, the man with the clipboard. He walked in like a judge entering a courtroom. He scanned the room, then his eyes landed on the mezzanine, then on the exits, then on the crowd. He snapped open his clipboard and spoke faster than a local priest cutting off a confession. "This assembly cannot proceed. Capacity limits, there is no permit for this temporary structure, fire suppression is insufficient, and the manual pull was activated. Everyone needs to vacate until we get a proper permit." He wrote something down and handed a copy to Marla. The copy said in precise bureaucratic language, "Immediate closure for public safety." The music stopped. The bloggers' smiles dissolved. Lena's face went white. Then a thin thing called rage pulled at the corners. "It's bullshit," she said, loud enough for the crowd to hear and for the cameras to catch. "You were paid to make this happen." Ryan lunged at me, not because he wanted the alarm fixed, but because he wanted control. He grabbed my shirt, wild and angry, trying to drag me out. I pivoted, a practiced motion like stepping through a door. His shoulder clipped the heavy bag someone had hung for a demo. The bag swung. We both hit it, a thud and a cascade of dust. For a second it was like a slow motion in a bad movie. Boxing gloves, a torn banner, a figure skidding to the lino. He shoved, I shoved back. Our hips collided. He pulled a key fob from his pocket in a panicked move, keys to his SUV he'd used to park in a fire lane outside. He jabbed it, frantic, trying to start the engine remotely. He wanted to rush the few cars out of the way to make space for a fire lane turn, to salvage the night. The SUV roared, a mechanical breath. The parking lot sloped. A car parked badly rolled a foot, hit the curb, thudded into the gym's metal roll bay, and the door shuddered. A dent, an ugly, permanent silver bruise along the metal. The guests went silent. Ryan froze. His insurance would call it accidental. The gym's partner would call it a threat. The video on a dozen phones would call it evidence. I didn't touch the vehicle. I didn't need to. Predictability is a weapon. A small nudge from chance and a series of errors is how the mighty fall. Within minutes, sponsors were on the phone. The photographer called his editor. The bloggers posted live, captions like, "Gala shut down," and "Safety first, chaos second." Lena's phone filled with missed calls and texts. Marla was crying behind a folding table, trying to appease a catering rep. Cass posted a clip of Lena arguing with Marla about a sponsorship clause that explicitly excluded controversial spouses. People liked the clip and moved on, but algorithms are not gentle. The clip picked up steam. In a town like Salt Harbor, steam becomes a boil fast. I stood outside under the drizzle, salt in the air, and watched patrons depart in pairs and threes, carrying bouquets crushed flat like confessions. Lena stormed out toward her rented car. She turned when she saw me. "Did you do this?" she said, voice a ceramic shard. "Did I what?" I asked. "Wake up? Remember? Use the tools I was given? I filed a complaint. I informed the right people. I pulled a small lever in a public machine and watched the machinery of civic safety do what it's supposed to." "You're despicable," she said. "You wanted this." "I wanted you to see what it feels like," I said. "To be the thing someone else can sculpt out of you. You were the cutter. I was the patient." She spat something I won't repeat. She stormed away into the wet. The next morning, the town had an appetite for scandal. The Harbor Field's cancellation notice was the headline. The gym's metal bay showed a fresh dent as plain evidence of the chaos. Jace argued with Ryan until the partner left the property in a haze of swear words. Sponsors sent lawyers form letters. Who fell hardest? Not me. I had no clients to lose, no sponsorship timeline, no filtered grid on Instagram. I had a lease on a small one-bedroom and a cat that wanted breakfast. My losses were measured in nights I couldn't sleep and a year I couldn't get back. But Lena's losses were measured in signatures, and signatures are what the town would remember. Cass's podcast grew. Audience love for a good reveal is inexorable. She texted, "You okay? I gave you credit obliquely." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Her gratitude is another kind of currency. She bought a scoop. I bought a lesson. 2 days later, Lena called me. She sounded frayed, like someone who's been burning the ends of her own rope to see what color the flame will take. "Why did you do this?" she said. "Because I was not invited," I said. "You sold my absence, Lena. You sold my inclusion for optics. You forgot to tell me why." "That was business," she said. "It wasn't personal." "It was personal," I said. "You removed me from my own purposes and replaced me with a product. That's personal enough." There was a silence. At that moment, I could have said anything. I could have called the police or sent a lawyer. I could have tried to take back what I'd done. But I had made my choice a long time ago. The choice was not to ruin them with one catastrophic move, but to make calamity feel like consequence. On the 6th day, I walked past the harbor field and saw Lena on the terrace, speaking to Marla and a woman in heels who had the look of a sponsor rep. They were measuring how much damage was left unpaid, how much reputation could be repaired with cake tastings and refunds. I stepped closer. Lena looked up, something like anger flickering, sharp and beautiful. She said, "You think you won?" I smiled. "I think I remembered." "Remembered what?" she said. "How to be visible," I said. "How to be inconvenient." She laughed, a quick crack. "You're a monster." She searched my face like it might crack into the truth she wanted. It didn't. She walked past me and stopped. She turned for a moment, and there was something that looked almost like regret. And then it was gone. The final week in Salt Harbor moved like low tide. I kept my job, doing inspections of places that could not lie. I ate breakfast at the diner where the waitresses knew my order by heart. People pointed at me sometimes, eyes full of curiosity and old gossip. I learned to wear that attention like an invisible shield. Then, the night of the canceled anniversary, I walked the marina. Boats rocked like sleeping things. I took a breath and tasted the harbor, tar, engine oil, a hint of lemon from a passing sailboat. The town hummed on autopilot, small tragedies tucked away like dog-eared books. I passed the harbor field and saw Lena through a second-story window, surrounded by people making lists, fingers tapping on screens. She looked smaller from where I stood, made of ordinary parts. She had lost sponsors, a gala, and the curated image that once wrapped her like armor. Ryan had a dented door and a partnership that smelled suspicious. Jace had a nervous tic. Cass had more listeners. Maybe they would claw their way back. Maybe they would not. Maybe what I had given them was only time and embarrassment and the hollow scrape of reputation dragged across concrete. Maybe that was enough. I turned away and walked home. I had no illusions about victory. There are no trophies for remembering. There is only the knowledge that, when you are forgotten, you can make sure people remember exactly why. As I reached my door, I thought about the last line I ever planned to write about that year. I had imagined a grand finale. I had imagined a violent scene or a dramatic confession. What I got instead was a room full of wet chairs, a dent in a bay door, a canceled event, and the slow, steady work of consequences. There was no echo of triumph, only the clean sound of the harbor at night. I closed my door behind me and leaned my forehead against it once, like a man who has scored a strange kind of victory and does not know whether to laugh or weep. Then I opened the window and listened to the water and the gulls and the town breathing off-season. My hands were empty, except for a folded printout of a complaint I had filed months ago. It was ordinary paper, the kind that proves only that someone used their rights. I pulled the printout into my pocket and walked to the counter. The cat meowed. I fed it. I poured coffee. The window looked out over Salt Harbor and the lights blinking like small, indifferent stars. They had lost things. That was true. They had each suffered in a way that cut at what they cared for most. Influence, money, image. The town would gossip, and the town would forget in time, but in those weeks I had become the kind of man who could make forgetting turn both ways. I lay on my couch and thought, for the first time in a long time, that anger can be a tool if you shape it. It can be used to measure things, rather than to destroy them without reason. The memory of the phone call from Hawaii would no longer hum in my ears as a slap. It would sit in the file drawer like a lesson learned. At 2 a.m, I got up, walked to the window, and watched Lena's light go out. For a moment, everything seemed very ordinary and very final. There would be no arrests, no last-minute confessions, no extended sagas of redemption. There was only the sound of rain beginning over the harbor, the town moving onward, and a life that had been altered by noticing. I closed the window. I slid the complaint into the drawer, exactly where it belonged. Then I sat at the table, wrote a short note to myself, mundane, brutal, precise, and folded it into my wallet. The cat jumped up and wiggled against my knee. I laughed quietly, with a sound that felt like a release. Outside, someone drove past with their lights low, music muffled. The harbor breathed and settled. I set the alarm and turned off the lamp. The night closed without fireworks, without closure, but with a certain architecture of consequence I had helped build. I slept.